Hey guys, welcome back. Another episode here, my channel. Got a interesting device today. This is definitely one of a kind. I haven't seen another one sold or much like it on the internet, so I figured let's do a video about it. I'm gonna try to make this kind of quick, but this is a ER-95A Italian VHF, lower spectrum VHF transceiver. It's got some interesting features about it, and I think the most interesting part about this particular radio is this is the Italian version of the PRC-77 from everything that I was reading up on. Once again, if I'm wrong, and I got some historians watching the channel, let me know in the comments, and be grateful. I do have a PRC-25 on order. She's going to be here in probably maybe 1 or 2 weeks, or 5 weeks, because it is shipping with USPS, and we all know how they ship their packages. Anyways, so on the front, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at some knobs, obviously. We have a couple of different items here. So the Italian version of the PRC-77 and the actual PRC-77 itself are very similar. They do the exact same things. The only difference is the layout, obviously. So I'm not going to get into what the PRC-77 looks like. I'm just going to stay with this radio. But on this radio we have 2 antenna ports. We have the BNC type, they're both 50 ohm, BNC connector. This is mainly for your base station. If you're not operating manpack, you would normally hook into this from what I have read up on. And if you were operating manpack, your antenna would go onto here, just because you're moving around so much, and this is a much better anchor for your antenna than the BNC connector. Up here we have a volume knob, and the volume knob doesn't go from there to there. It actually will go all the way back like that, and then all the way forward like that. So it's a little off track, but that's completely normal operation. It's operating just as it was designed to. Our range, it's pretty straightforward. If you want to operate 26 megahertz to 48 megahertz, you're going to have the selector on this side. If you want to have the range from 49 to 71 megahertz, you're going to turn this way, the selector to that side. And I don't know if you could hear that, but there was a significant click in the background. And that is all of the systems inside changing over to the other band. And the other thing that's pretty neat about this is on the front here, let me see if I can get better camera footage. We have our megahertz and we have our kilohertz. And on the megahertz side, if I switch over to my other range, you can see how the dial turns down. Right now it says 52. Forgive my camera for being so absolutely horrendous. This is what I get for using a phone. I promise my next videos will not be on a phone, guys. Anyways, so that's how you switch through the different modes. The kilohertz stays the same over there. So I'm just going to leave her on 29 megahertz. So then these right here are our knobs to change, obviously. There are presets set automatically for this radio. So, for example, 28, 27 megahertz is a preset. If you take that off, I can adjust. So if I turn the knob, I can see my range of frequencies. And there's 29 megahertz. So we're going to leave it on 29. And then I got 350 kilohertz over here. Same thing. Turn the knob, changes your kilohertz. Over here on the right, I got relay, which is basically repeat. These stations could be used as a repeater. You had to have 2 of them, but they could be used as a repeater, on, remote, and off. Up here is the silencer. The silencer is not something I have used yet. It doesn't seem to do anything during transmission or receive. I've tried both different methods, and it doesn't seem to make a difference. So maybe that's not working, or maybe it does something else. And then over here we have two audio connections and our microphone connections. They are both the exact same ports, and they will do the exact same thing. My theory on the two ports is that you could use this as a repeater and as still a station, or if you had the radio man and the commanding officer both talking on the radio, you could hook up two microphones and the commanding officer and the radio man could both be listening in on the same thing. Or maybe just have multiple people listening in on the same thing. I don't know. So the nice thing about this unit is it is working. It does work to its specification. And I believe this unit was made somewhere around late 1970s or early 1980s. Still works, and she's still right on band where she needs to be. So, how do we power such a radio? What's the voltage of the 95? So the 95 takes an operating voltage of 24 volts. To my knowledge, there is no vacuum tubes in it. There's no filament. So there's no weird voltages that are needed to power those systems. So on the back side here, we have our power unit here. This is our power cord that's supplying 24 volts DC. And then this is the back side of it. The nice thing about this cover here is this unit detaches. And if we do it very carefully, we get to see what the inside looks like. So here are the fuses right here. And here's an old school looking port that I guess is just for power or computation. Not too sure what it is. But it does something. So, and then there we go. There's a model number for this. This is a BA301-C. And I'm not going to even try to pronounce who makes it. It's all in Italian. So yeah, this is the power supply. This is not a battery pack in itself. This just converts the 24 volts to usable voltages to go into the actual back of the radio. The back of the radio is basically 4 pins, positive and negative, and a serial looking connector here, but it's not for serial, it's for power, I believe. So that's what that is. The rubber seal is no longer in the radio. It's not a big deal. I'm not worried about it. I don't plan on getting it soaking wet anytime soon. So the radio's plugged back in. Now if somebody watching this YouTube channel manages to get one of these, the question or the biggest piece of advice I would give them is make sure you got a good, dependable voltage supply. First option is going to be a 24 volt DC power supply. Keep in mind, you're not going to be able to take this thing and move it around because it's plugged into 120 volts AC. But it does work to convert 120 volts AC, 24 volts DC at 15 amps. So this is pretty beefy for what it's used for, and you can get this on Amazon for maybe about $20–30. So it's not too much. So that's option number one. Option number two, it's a little bit more of an expensive option, but it's much better in my opinion, and that is to get some 12 volt batteries, wire them up in series to get 24 volts out. These are 12 volt 9 amp hour. They're not the big ones that I wanted to carry around. Keep in mind, if you're going to actually make this into a man pack and carry it on your back, your battery size will greatly affect the weight you're going to be carrying around all day. So I actually tried this out yesterday walking around. Just these two batteries with the radio weight is very, very, very heavy. I'm only $1.50 really. So keep that in mind. Now, I ran this radio for about an hour and a half yesterday talking on it to a base station I had here. To the house, went about 4 blocks. She worked like a champ, but this thing was getting heavy. So just keep in mind that the bigger the battery, the more heavier it's going to get. And back in the day, that was the same thing. So, but I do prefer a bigger battery. Alright, so I showed you the battery, showed you the radio. This is the actual headset here. Now when I got it shipped to me, the bottom end broke out, so I temporarily just took an old AT&T phone that I had, took the microphone part out of it, and basically just soldered wires to this thing and then put it on with electrical tape, and it works just as good. So it talks and it listens. The only problem with this is the microphone's a little bit more sensitive than I would want it to be, so I have a backfeed problem where the microphone can actually hear the stereo output, so I have to turn the volume way down. The connector type to the radio is this thing, and if y'all are curious about the model number on this, this is a handset H-33F/PT. Phoetics is Hotel-33 Foxtrot / Papa Tango. That's the model number. Made out of, looks like Bakelite plastic, or Bakelite. Not much to it. Hearing piece, very thin, small little speaker in there. That's the speaker, nothing more to it. And the microphone is not stock, so I'm not going to talk about that right now. I have one on order, so I will probably do just a little follow-up video with it. This is the button to transmit right here. So press it down and you're transmitting. Nothing to it. Pretty simple. I'm probably going to take this apart later and just clean the contacts a little bit, because sometimes you have to grip it really, really firm to get a good connection. But other than that, it's pretty simple to use. So to hook this into the radio, I'm going to go over here, disconnect or take off my dust cover. Make sure that this only goes on one way, so just make sure that's lined up. Press in, turn, boom, that's it. So this would be the partial setup here, and then you would hook in the power and turn the system on. So right now I have it off. Gonna go over to my power system, aka two 12-volt batteries. I soldered on a 12-volt adapter here. Normally this is used for 12 volts, but I'm going to use it for 24. So I know it's being used for 24. I'm not going to try to hook up 12 volt to it. Red with red, plug it in. Okay. And maybe you can see the light turn on the lamp setting here. So you can barely see what it looks like. So if I just leave it on the on setting, which is right there, turn the light back on, turn my volume up, and there's my audio coming through. I don't have an antenna connected on it yet, but you would just hear normal audio like a normal radio. So we're going to hook this into my scope, and I'll show you the power output and what it looks like on the spectrum analyzer. Okay, so I got the radio on. We're going to go do a TX test. So now we key up this radio, we should see the power shown on the screen. So there we go. We had about 1.6, 1.7. That's actually a perfect power, because out of the factory this radio was rated for 1.5 watts on transmission power. The PRC 25 and 77 was in the range between 2 watts to 5 watts, I believe. But that's just where this one was, what this one was designed for. And it is 1.5 watts across the board on both bands, not just one versus the other. So once again, 1.7. Turn my volume down. So there we go. And I'm going to put some audio through it. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. So there we go. Once again, test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. So we're getting about 1.7 watts, which is beautiful. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. Looks like it's staying pretty steady on the frequency that I set it for. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. So it looks like here that we're seeing a little bit of deviation on the kilohertz side as far as the air, but it doesn't seem to be a problem. Yesterday it wasn't when we tested the range on it, so it's not too bad for being almost 40 years old. We're going to go over to Spectrum Analyzer, show you what that looks like. So there's our peak. And if I put some audio through it, that is what our carrier tone versus audio tone looks like. And everything seems to be working out pretty well. The radio is transmitting the way it should, and it is looks like it's staying right on 29.350. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it, and let me know if you want to see more about this radio or even this Spectrum Analyzer that I'm using, and I would be more than happy to show more of it. 73s. See y'all later.